What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast where we're not here to go to school. We're not here to go to work. We ain't here to play video games. We are not here to play school. We're here to talk college football. Jake Micah, Alex Micah, back again. It's week 7, Mo. Can you believe we've been doing this for 7 weeks? I really can't.
No, it's crazy. I mean,
this is technically 6.
Time flies by when you're having fun.
Is this technically 6 because we started after week 1, right? Didn't we start after week 1 because we were in? Or did we start before week 1?
The 6th episode, but 7th week of college football.
Yeah. So hey, we're cruising right along here in the college football season, which is kind of sad. We're almost at the halfway point, but we're enjoying all of it as we can. As you know, we showed right at the beginning. If you were watching, this is why we're here. We're not here to play school. Cardell should be the legend of the game for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football. That's all I'm saying.
We have a living legend, though, playing. It's Tyrod. He's the living legend.
Yeah, I'm a little scared about that. But besides that, we're going to get into college football talk today. We got huge games. This really two big games and 2 big rivalries going on. And the Pac-12 is taking center stage. What's left of it. The future Big Ten / Pac-12.
As it kind of has all year. No one thought the Pac-12 would be this good.
Truly has. This is like the first weekend of both the biggest games are the real 3 contenders. We're talking about USC, Oregon, Washington right now. And Oregon and Washington. So let's just start off right from there. Let's start off hot with the main event of the weekend at 3:30 Eastern. It is Oregon at Washington. Now I'm mixing this up because I've seen. Okay, I've said it like I think every time I've thought about it, I've thought that it was the other way around each time. I just keep thinking one way or the other.
At Husky Stadium. Stadium.
Go ahead.
But like I talked about in the write-up earlier today, Washington hasn't won at home in this series since 2017. So I mean, does it really matter for them if they're on the road or not? That's a tough, or that they're home or not. Or for Oregon, for the matter, does it matter that they're on the road? You never know. But obviously this is the game I picked. I want to talk about the most because my love for Washington. I was my road to glory. I was the Heisman winner, 2-time national champion, raised them back to prominence. So I need to rep for the Washington Huskies and Michael Penix Jr., who I never would have thought it, but he is a very viable Heisman candidate. And he is that passing game that they have is one of the most fun things to watch in college football.
He's also one of your mortal enemies.
He is one of my mortal enemies, but I gotta give it up to him because I never thought he would accomplish what he's done.
No, this is another level, and also no one thought that Kalen DeBoer or whatever is that his name, Kalen DeBoer?
Yeah,
was he? No one thought he was going to be able to pull this off so quickly. Where Washington was after Chris Peterson left and everything else. And this team is a legitimate national title contender, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a team that they were bad. They was a tough couple of years, and now they're back right up there. And this is a team that has rebuilt themselves. But then you look at Oregon across the way, and Dan Lanning's done the same thing. Like he's instilled a culture there. They are tough. They're mean. They're tough in the trenches, and they were tough in the trenches with Cristobal too. But it feels like a different level with this Oregon team, and especially with both these teams. I made the joke about the Big Ten, but they really do need to be better in the trenches to compete with the elites of the Big Ten. And both these teams look like they're primed and ready to go, and that's why this feels like such a bigger matchup, I think, for me than even past years where these teams have been highly ranked and everything else, because these two teams feel like legit. Whoever wins this game could be a college football playoff team and a college football playoff contender too, not just showing up like Washington did and getting blown out, like against Bama a couple years ago or things like that. Like actually coming in and having some success. I feel like either of these teams, you could see that going forward.
Not even a couple years ago, bro. It was 7 years ago. It's when that game.
Yeah,
life old or not.
Yeah. Life moves fast sometimes.
But no, yeah, like you were saying. I mean, this is the first time that they're both AP top 10 opponents playing each other in this game. And I think it's pretty much, this is a step towards college football playoff 100%. It's definitely a step towards Pac-12 title. I know there's no division, so you never know what's going to happen. And, they might even play each other again in the rematch for the Pac-12 title.
Yeah.
But I think either one of these teams is moving on to the playoff, honestly, especially if if the committee decides to have like actual like 4 different conferences represented, which they haven't done in the last couple of years.
And
But I mean,
it feels like we're getting there, though. Feels like we're getting there
you have
this
a
year.
13-0 Oregon or a 13-0 Washington. I don't know how you can say that they're not in the playoff.
It's true. It's true, and that's what makes this first game interesting. We're going to talk about USC in a second too, because they're the other team that you have to mention along with this three-headed monster right now in the Pac-12, because the Pac-12's biggest problem for basically the entirety of the college football playoff is that they will just cannibalize themselves and eliminate their own contenders. And then there's, 2-loss and 3-loss teams at the end. And you're like, well, we can't put one of these teams in.
Right.
Like, it's just we're not putting them in the title game. And it feels like we're shaping up to get to that point again, where these teams all play each other. I think is it the next 3 weeks they all play each other, or in 3 of the next 4 weeks or something like that?
I believe so.
I'm pretty sure we talked about that or looked it up a couple weeks ago, or like it's the round robin like gauntlet of games for all these teams coming up. And either way, they all have to play each other in the next couple weeks. And if they all beat each other, that's what I'm worried about for the Pac-12, is if all these teams beat each other, like where do they all end up? Even if they all end up with one loss, like going into
the playoff.
I know it's tough.
It's Washington doesn't play USC until November 4th, so they have 2 more games before USC. But then they have a rank, and their end of the season is wild. They're at USC, then home against ranked Utah, at ranked Oregon State, and then home against Washington State for the Apple Cup. So Washington has a tough stretch the last 4 weeks of the year against all ranked teams right now as it sits.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough stretch for them. We're really going to find out about Penix against some good defense this week, first of all, but just against some solid teams, and just see if he slips up. And he's, like you said, he's been at a Heisman. Like, he's the Heisman favorite right now. And if he keeps it up, he's going to win the Heisman.
Betting odds favorite. As we sit right now, we're 6 weeks in. He's the Heisman favorite. Do you know who Washington has never won a Heisman ever in their history? What's the highest finish, and do you know the player?
Is it Jake Locker?
It is not Jake Locker. It's a defensive lineman.
Oh, no.
In the 90s.
No
idea. Steve Emtman, who went number 1 overall to the Colts in 1992, and he finished 4th. That's the highest finish they've ever had, is 4th.
That's crazy.
Yeah, very, very crazy. I mean, and he's going to be a finalist. So no matter what, the way he's playing right now, he's going to be in New York City for that ceremony in December.
Oh, definitely. He's earned that at this point. What do you think about Oregon, though? We talked a lot about Washington, a lot about Penix. Bo Nix, Broadway Bo, is coming in, and he's been awesome this year too. Like, do you think this is the biggest game of his career? And obviously, like, that's the thing about these two quarterbacks, is it's
both transfers.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the
programs. Yeah,
it's the modern college football. It's the most modern college football thing, that these two guys who were good, don't get me wrong, like they were decent for their other Power 5 conference teams that they played for, but they weren't world beaters. That's why they left and looked for new opportunities out west. And now they're both thriving. And Bo Nix, if Oregon wins and Bo Nix plays well, he might be the Heisman favorite after this weekend, or at least close to up there. I don't know where he is right now, but you know how the narratives get running here.
100%.
And Bo's been in.
Bo Nix has a big win in his career. I mean, his freshman year he beat Bama. They were at home. It was Auburn when they beat Bama. I mean, so he's been in big game scenarios before, but we haven't seen it out of him at Oregon yet. We haven't seen him win the big one yet.
It's true. So that's why I'm wondering, like, can Bo live up to the moment? Because I've seen Penix play well in big games, and Bo has struggled in a lot of big games throughout his career. And they had a nice win. They had some nice wins this year. He's looked good. They've looked.
Bo Nix is 3rd best odds right now.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. So if Oregon wins, he's won. Unless we'll get to Caleb. We'll get to USC and see what they do tomorrow too. We'll talk about them in a second. I want to get your prediction on this game first before we move on.
Washington's going to win, but they're not going to cover. It's only 3 points. I think that's going to be like it's going to be a 1-point game.
35-34.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be very, very close. I think Washington is gonna win though. I just think that offense is just so high powered, and even though Oregon's defense is ranked high, they haven't played anybody good. I mean, yeah, it helps when you play like Portland State, or a really bad Texas Tech team. So
it's it's going to be a big test. It's going to be a great atmosphere in Seattle too for Oregon to step into. So going to be a fun game. It's at 3:30. Wish it was the night game, but I understand why the Pac-12 wanted this one at 3:30 when you've got USC and Notre Dame and your current, I guess, flagship university who's leaving. But you want to show them and put Caleb in the national spotlight here and everything else. Obviously, it was going to be a Notre Dame.
I don't know if they had much of a choice in that. I mean, it's at Notre Dame.
I think they had a choice to put Oregon and Washington at 3:30 though.
Yeah, that's
Notre Dame wanted
don't
this game at 7:30.
Don't want competing. Yeah.
So USC 6-0 right now. They've been flying high, but they have a lot more question marks than Oregon and Washington, specifically in the trenches and on the defensive side of the ball. This is a team, we saw Colorado play at Oregon and just get mollywopped, right? And then the next week, USC had trouble, and they were at Colorado, and it was an early start, all that stuff, but they were up big and then had trouble closing that game out. And Shedeur was able to, procure some drives at the end and really get Colorado back in that football game. And that's my biggest question about USC. Like, USC is not as good of a team as Oregon or Washington. They aren't as deep. They're not as solid all the way through the lineup. But they have the great equalizer at quarterback with Caleb Williams, who is going to be the number 1 overall pick. Whoever teams are tanking for him. The Broncos did a great job last night trying to secure their number 1 pick to get Caleb. Like, everybody, he's the talk of the thing. But when you talk about Penix and Bo Nix, we just said that's number 1 and number 3 in the Heisman running right now. Is Caleb number 2?
Caleb's number 2.
So you have the 3 quarterbacks. So, like, the great equalizer that I'm talking about, is he really that much of an equalizer in the Pac-12 when these 2 other quarterbacks are playing at that level? And so he has a chance to really – and this team just has a chance to be like, hey, we're for real here. Like, this is a big opportunity for USC, even against the Notre Dame team who last week struggled again, and they obviously lost, and any little bit of college football playoff hope that they had went out the window. But this is still a team battling for a New Year's Six bowl. If they went 10-2, they'll be in contention for it. So
Notre Dame has weird contracts set up for New Year's Six, where I think as long as it's not the Orange Bowl is not a playoff this year, that they're considered for the Orange Bowl if they have a good enough record.
If they're in the top 14,
if they go 10-2, then they're probably an Orange Bowl berth away. It's USC, obviously, the Pac-12 title hopes. I mean, they made it there last year and lost to Utah. The thing with Caleb, when we were talking about, I get, the great equalizers, Penix and Bo Nix are out there too. He is the best of both worlds, though. He will make an amazing play throwing the ball 60 yards downfield on a rope, but then will also break off a 55-yard run where he scrambles and breaks 7 tackles. He's just such an elite talent. I mean, I understand. It makes sense why all these NFL teams are going to be tanking for him, and why the NFL might have to create a lottery like the NBA and NHL does. He's just like, no, I'm not going to leave. I'll stay another year. I don't want to be on this awful team.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. Their defense is worse than it was last year, I think, which is saying a lot because it was a shame. And like every single game he has to pull them out of some kind of ridiculous fire. I don't know if you stayed up late and watched Arizona at USC last week.
No, I passed out. I know that it was crazy, though, and it was a double overtime.
41, yeah. I mean, triple overtime. Like against Arizona, who's not good. And then they kind of did the same thing. They played Arizona State, who's also not good, really close. And then you mentioned Colorado. Like, they are not putting teams away. And, I mean, they're going to run into superior talent. And I think it's just really going to hurt them. Is that Notre Dame? The way they played the last 2 weeks, no. Their offenses look stagnant compared to what we saw at the beginning of the year. But I think Notre Dame's defense is the best defense that USC is going to see all year.
I agree with that for sure. And especially in this scenario at night, Notre Dame Stadium, 7:30 rivalry game. Like, and this is at this point, we're 5-2. Like this is desperation mode. This is kitchen sink game for Notre Dame too. So they're going to be throwing everything there. Yeah. It's a very, very interesting to think about what Caleb's going to look like. And because if he comes and shows out, like, I'm kind of terrified of, I just have no idea what to expect from USC in this scenario, honestly. Like, I feel like they could come out with Lincoln Riley teams. I feel like they could come out flat and get punched in the mouth, and it's going to be a long night, or they're going to come out and be up 21-0 in the first quarter. And that's like the only two options I really see. Like, I don't think that there's a shootout going to happen here. I don't think Notre Dame, they can't keep up. In the two games that they've lost, they scored 14 and 20 points. They're not going to, if they lose, they're going to lose by not scoring enough points and USC being able to do whatever they want offensively. I think Notre Dame needs to keep that pace to their style, control the ball, keep Caleb off the field. In this game, they have to win it like 20-17 and hope that they cause some turnovers and sacks and just those like, it needs to be an ugly game for Notre Dame to even be in the game, I think.
Yeah, it does. Even, I mean, you're talking about those two games they lost, and I'm completely forgetting about when they played Duke, and the offense still didn't look good then either.
Yeah,
Notre Dame's a tough 4-game stretch here. Hosting Ohio State at a ranked Duke team, at ranked Louisville, and now hosting USC. And I mean, this is make or break time, and they're breaking. That's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, the Sam Hartman hype has died down quite a bit.
Our grandma, who is a very big Notre Dame fan, said to me earlier today. She said, "I think Marcus Freeman's on the hot seat." already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she is. So,
wow.
I was like, I give coaches 3 years, but I get what you're saying.
I mean, it's a tough look. That, losing to Ohio State at home the way they did, it's one thing. Last week, they should have, if you're Notre Dame, you should win that game even on the road. And I know, and Hartman, the thing is, Hartman might just be cursed in Louisville because he has now had 2 bad games at that stadium, one with Wake Forest and one with Notre Dame. So that's what I'm wondering. That's what I'm really wondering with this game. This is Sam Hartman's biggest game of his life too. Like, playing USC on a national stage. They don't have another game like this year. They might not make a New Year's Six bowl. Like, beating USC at home would be the feather in his cap of a great career. And so I'm interested to see how this Notre Dame team comes out, how motivated they look, and what that means for the, because it's a rivalry game, and especially this game has been plenty crazy over the last 15, 20 years specifically. I feel like we're set up for another classic.
Oh, for sure. I mean, what's in the news all the time is the push, or is the tush push, as people are calling it. I mean, who knows? Maybe we're going to see that again. Who's pushing Caleb Williams into the end zone for a touchdown at the end of the game? There's levels. This history's coming back around.
It's true. It's the push has been it's all the rage now.
It is all the rage.
All right, now we have to go to your North Carolina Tar Heels, who this game would have been if Miami, what the fuck? Like, what was Miami? What were they thinking? What is it like Madden when you don't like? It's like our father who hates kneeling would have loved this, but this is why you don't do this.
This is why you don't kneel.
Why you kneel? Because like it's so, and the fact that he didn't fumble either. Like, he was clearly down on the play too. It's such a mess. But no, this should have been just as marquee. It still kind of feels like a marquee matchup because it's only a 1-loss Miami team. But if this was 2 undefeated ACC teams going at it this week, I don't know. Like, maybe it wouldn't have been game day or anything else, but it just feels like it lost that little bit of luster.
No,
no reason it should have.
Yeah, it would have had the case to possibly be game day. You never know, but no, it's absurd. It's like,
how did we get here?
Victory formation is a good thing. I don't know why they're Cristobal is running away from it, but I mean, I don't know. You kind of see that with just his like coach teams though. Even at Oregon, there's always like a lot of these coaches you see. We're talking about Lincoln Riley. They have just some game where they kind of just like crap the bed.
Yeah.
That they just stop thinking for a minute and they make some big key error. And this is his for Miami's right now. Who knows? Maybe Miami will go undefeated the rest of the year, and they're gonna run the table and they'll still win the ACC. But I mean, that's just rough. And then to also just have a receiver running wide open on the final play of the game.
Yeah.
Like have all your guys back, man. Make them do a Hail Mary. Why are you letting guys get open?
They shook, man. They had no idea. Like, they thought it was done, and they were like, okay, it's gonna be a top 15 matchup in Chapel Hill next week. Like, they were already penciling it in, and now here we are. And that's why I don't know about you, but I'm leaning towards Miami in this game because I think that this team has looked awesome all year besides this moment. Like, and I know that was a closer game last week than it should have been anyways against Georgia Tech, but I think they were looking ahead. I really think that was part of it too, is they were getting up for this kind of game, knew that it was going to be such a big matchup, and then you have the huge blunder. But you're also very high on North Carolina. This is where you had them in your preseason poll. I think it was at 12.
Poll had them at 12.
They finally got there.
They finally are up there. Yeah, because Drake May. And even though he has not been like the Heisman candidate that people thought he was going to be to start the season, but he's still playing really well. He's playing pretty sound football. He's had 2 different games where he's had multiple picks, but he's still taking care of the ball for the ball. I mean, even with those picks, he hasn't had a game below 70% completion percentage yet. And it's not like he's dinking and dunking his way down the field. He has 2 games with over 400 yards this year. So, I mean, he's the number 2 quarterback prospect, and he's kind of like, I don't want to say the inverse of Caleb Williams because Caleb Williams is so like well-rounded, but he's just like this big body dude who can scramble if he needs to and has an amazing arm. He's not going to be able to like run for 150 yards in a game like Caleb could, and he's not always going to like put up those gaudy numbers, but he can throw so well and so accurately. Like I don't even know like a comp for him right now in the NFL. Really, I get maybe Mahomes a little bit. Is just because his like the strength of his arm and the accuracy of it.
You mean Caleb or Drake?
I'm talking about Drake. Just like the strength of his arm and not. I mean, he'll run.
I think he looks like Herbo to me. Like him, he looks like a Justin Herbert clone, honestly, to me, but a little better than Herbert was in college.
That's fair. Yeah. I would go with that. I'm just like how good
Caleb is Mahomes. Caleb is a 6-foot Mahomes. If he was 6'4", he would just be Mahomes.
He's more mobile.
But that's what it is because he's shorter. He's got a little more mobility. Mahomes is carrying around a little more. Mahomes is a big guy. That's the thing. Mahomes is like a legit 6'3".
I think Williams is a 101. I think honestly.
Yeah, I mean he's like
everyone talks about like obviously the best rushing quarterback in the NFL right now is like Lamar Jackson, and then you could argue about who has the best. Like obviously Josh has like the strongest arm, not the most accurate. I mean this year's very accurate, but not always the most accurate. So you can make cases like Williams is like the best of like most of these guys into one.
It's Caleb Tyrod Taylor.
No, he'll throw over the middle. Actually, it's a tight end.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know, Caleb. You're right, Caleb. He is kind of one of one. The Mahomesian thing is like I think it's the escapability and him running around like he does is the most Mahomes thing. But yeah, he is kind of just his own thing, and it's hard to evaluate. Like I see people ripping him apart sometimes too on just haters, and I get not haters, but just critics of Caleb and what he's going to be in the NFL because he does run around too much and he holds on to the ball and he's got happy feet. I think he's just doing that because he can, like Kyler did. Kyler, and it's not a good comp because Kyler has been I shouldn't say a mess. The Cardinals have been a mess. Kyler had his moments. And then he didn't want to study football anymore.
Kyler's 5'9". That's the problem.
And that is a problem too. But I just mean like the habits and everything else that everybody's worried about with Caleb. If I don't think that's going to matter, and I still think he's going to be able to make those plays in the NFL too. Like that's the thing is he's got an elite athlete. This is a guy who was like 5-star, almost perfect composite score coming out of high school. Like. Everything about him he's been destined. Another one of those guys like destined for a number 1 pick. Again, he's lived up to all of that. But Drake is the same way. Drake comes from a great sports family. His brother played basketball at North Carolina as well. Like he has the pedigree as well, and he's been awesome his whole career too. And so I feel like maybe you're right. Like I still like Miami in this game, but Drake May might just be the best player on the field, and that might be all the difference.
I think he is. I think I picked UNC to win and to cover. Their spread's really short too. It's only like 3.5. I think they'll do it.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun game. I think it's gonna be.
It should be. You're right. It's interesting to see what Miami does to bounce back because they have tons of talent too on that team. So and they can score. I mean, they can put.
They are underranked for me. They were even underranked last week for me. I think that this is like it's crazy to me that they were like 17 when or whatever they were last week when they were undefeated, and they are I don't know. It's just like maybe it's just not trusting this team who hasn't deserved to be trusted for the last couple of years, and that's why the rankings are so low. But this team feels like better than the 25th ranked team in the country to me, just like North Carolina also feels like better than the 12th ranked team in the country. So
Right.
this feels like a bigger matchup than it is on paper, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. Those are the three big matchups. So let's get through the rest of the top 12 here before we go and do a quick breakdown of each game. We start with number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs, who we've got some beef in the comments. We got to go Dogs.
Yeah.
Go Dogs, and then Dogs suck. So this is our podcast audience is split right down the middle. And
That's
then also, this is my favorite podcast. Thank you, Haley, out there watching from wherever you are in the country. I don't know where she is, and
he's the house next door. That's what you're saying.
There you go. So Uga, listen, we were like, oh, maybe Kentucky has a chance.
No.
Maybe the Wildcats are going to give Georgia. And you were like, I don't know. Then we were like, but maybe Georgia had their scares, and this is going to be the week where they come out and just bulldoze them. And that's what they did. And now they go to Vanderbilt.
32.5 point favorites. Do they cover?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. Even though Vandy hasn't looked terrible this year, I think they're 2-3. That's solid for them. Usually, they're 0-5. Do we need to even talk about this game really? It's kind of obvious Georgia's going to just steamroll. Carson Beck is lighting it up after last week. He's 4th in college in passing yards right now. I didn't realize that until right before the podcast.
I did not realize that either.
Yeah, he's 4th in passing yards, and Brock Bowers arguably should be a Heisman candidate. I don't know. I mean, it's hard. He's a tight end, but I wonder where he sits. I know he popped into the odds recently.
There's been talks about him as the.
It's just
it would be really hard. It would be really hard for a tight end to make it. He'd have to have some.
It's not the 40s anymore, but let's see.
Think of what Devonta
Smith.
Smith.
3,000 right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't take that action.
No, he's plus. He's sandwiched between JJ McCarthy and Quinn Ewers. It's right where he wants to be. That's a good spot.
Yeah, it's Bowers is going to be a fucking stud, man. Bowers in the NFL is going to be terrifying.
Realistically, we've talked about the first, second, and third pick in the draft. Possibly, it's Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Brock Bowers. Might be.
You're forgetting a guy. You're forgetting.
Oh, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. He's probably the number 2 pick in that draft.
Well, depends who they need. Depends if the team's drafting a quarterback or not.
Well, the Chicago Bears might have both those picks, so I think they would pick Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr.
The Texans aren't bad. I was gonna say the Cardinals might have both those picks, but
yeah, the Panthers are bad.
The Panthers are really bad,
and they don't have a first round pick.
Yeah,
so not ideal for them. But all right, let's move on to the next matchup here. We have the Indiana Hoosiers traveling to the Big House to take on the Michigan Wolverines. Anything? Any thoughts?
Michigan is 33-point faves. I don't think they cover, but it's going to be they're going to win by 28 still. Just not. They won't have that. They won't win by 5 touchdowns. I don't know. Indiana is so weird. They're an example of holding on to a coach for way too long because he had a couple years of mediocrity and Tom Allen, and I don't get it. Also, Indiana fans must be punching the air right now because Michael Penix Jr. is a Heisman favorite, and
that wasn't happening.
No, it wasn't going to happen in Indiana, but still, I mean, it's just a bad beat. That's tough to see. No, I think Michigan just keeps on rolling on. I mean, when do they play Michigan State? Do you know?
I think it's next week. No, it is. Next Saturday.
So I mean, Michigan State isn't very good this year, but you can't jump ahead on the schedule. I think Michigan's done this last couple years where they play teams really close in the first half, then just taken off in the second. They might do that. The first half they might be sleepy, looking ahead towards a rivalry game.
Yeah.
And start slow against Indiana, but then I think they'll just handle business.
I think so too. I don't think there's much. Michigan hasn't been tested at all this year, and they've been running over teams, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yet again, but hopefully that maybe Indiana gives it a game. Maybe the Hoosiers can kind of pull something off here and give us a little bit of a close game. I mean, they had a close game week 1 against the Buckeyes. That was at home, obviously. So who knows? I think it'll be a lower scoring game. If the total is set for a lower scoring game, at least 45.5, and Michigan's 33.5 point favorites. So it's not expecting a lot of points from the Hoosiers. That's for sure. Ohio State, number 3 in the nation, traveling to Purdue, where Buckeye fans, they can't be feeling good about this. I'm sorry. There's no way anytime Ohio State sees at Purdue on the schedule that they are excited about the prospect.
They've had struggles in West Lafayette. They're very. It's a noon game. If it was a night game, then they think they should be really worried. The fact that it's at noon, I think bodes well for them. 19-point fave still. Obviously, I mean that's only the third or fourth. That's the 4th lowest spread in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 8 teams playing, so I mean that's interesting. That's interesting to see. It all depends. Like we've talked about it the whole time. We just don't trust Kyle McCord. He's the worst quarterback that they've had in 12 years.
Since Todd Beckman, I think he's the worst quarterback.
Yeah, since before the namesake of this pod, since before Cardell.
Yeah.
And obviously he's still like serviceable. He's not awful, but it just goes to show like what a good run of quarterback play that they've had. And he just isn't it. And it's kind of like was shown up until last week. They couldn't get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved in big games at all against Big Ten opponents.
Yeah. But that's what it's only an 18-point spread means that I think this game that like 18 feels like, 2 touchdowns for me in a college football game is like this game could be close. Like an upset could be on the horizon if things go right. And I feel like Purdue they've been struggling this year. They haven't been. It's not like they're world beaters. They're 2-4 right now, but they put up 44 points against Illinois a couple weeks ago. They beat Virginia Tech. They haven't been impressive this year. But you just never know. You never know. And like I said, Buckeye fans never feel good about going into West Lafayette. So we'll see what happens there in Purdue. Like you said, it's a noon game. So if it was a night game, it might be a little different. I remember when Ohio State lost at Purdue, I was living in Ohio, and I will never remember. I was at a bar watching the end of this game, and I saw this sad old man. This man, I've never seen a man so angry in my life and sad at the same time. And I'll never forget the look on his face, and he was just talking out loud, like not even to anybody, just kind of complaining into the air about the Buckeyes. So that's all I can see when I think about Ohio State Purdue is that guy for the rest of my life. So hopefully it's a better day for the Buckeye fans this Saturday at noon. But Syracuse also at noon, right? Syracuse at Florida State. Can the Orange pull the upset on a Florida State team who we have been not very high on the last couple weeks? And Syracuse is 4-2. They've played a lot better, but they got blown out at North Carolina, 40-7. They lost to Clemson at home, 31-14. This is not a team. Once they played, push comes to shove, they played 2 good teams.
Yeah, no, started out 4-0, but they didn't. Like last year, they started out 5-0, and everyone got tricked into thinking they were good. They were ranked.
Yeah.
And then this year, started out 4-0. AP wasn't tricked. Didn't want to put them in, and it makes sense. They've dropped the last 2. I don't know. They might give a little bit of a fight, I think, early, but they're just not like a very well-rounded team overall.
Yeah.
Garrett Schrader, like, is okay. He can get the ball moving on his feet, but against a Florida State team that's playing really well, I think and especially at Florida State, they don't really have a shot. They might cover. I mean, it's 18.5. That's a little. I think that might be a little high.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. They lost by 33 last week. So, but North Carolina, I think North Carolina is a better team than Florida State.
I do. North Carolina's offense is better. Like as much as people want to hype up on Jordan Travis, Drake May's better than Jordan Travis.
Yeah, I'll take that North Carolina offense all day.
Yeah.
I think that team. I think they're just better. I think Florida State's here because they beat LSU. Like this is why I hate polls. We shouldn't do polls until October because this Florida State team, they had one good win against a team who hasn't looked impressive this year, and now we're just floating off of that. And then an overtime win over a Clemson team who no one's high on.
No, who's 4-2? Yeah,
yeah,
not ranked.
So,
we missed the opportunity to talk about your boy from Kent State, Devontae Walker, reinstated by the NCAA last week.
Back.
Only going to be a second game. So that's the thing huge too. Think about that offense just adds another weapon. Wanted to get that in there before we kept that moving. But no, I think Syracuse could cover, but I'm not high on Florida State at all. Not high on Norvell like everyone else is. Them being 4 is wild to me. I don't know. I wasn't high on them. I had them at 10 to start the season in my preseason poll. I did, and obviously they won big win against LSU, who I think I had them at 6, but it's just I don't know. They don't seem like a complete team like a lot of these other contenders do.
No, I'm with you. I think that there's some cracks in that armor, and I don't know if Syracuse is the team that's gonna be able to pull off the upset, but they're right for one coming soon. I think.
Did you see that the problem with the ACC this year is that Louisville undefeated, Florida State undefeated, UNC undefeated. None of those 3 teams play each other this year because the way ACC is now, no divisions, so it's all just a free for all, and none of them are scheduled to play each other at all. So the 3 best teams in the ACC won't even see each other.
That's crazy.
So I mean that's if who does it? They all go undefeated. I don't know what the tiebreaker is to get into the ACC title game, but they might have to figure that out.
We shall see. Let's go to our Penn State Nittany Lions. Do we have to say anything about this, or can we just?
It's 6 touchdowns. It's 42 points. Do you think they cover?
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
It's UMass.
I know, but it's just a lot. That's a lot of points. That's a lot to win by.
Really, all that matters is next week they go to Ohio State. So they just need to be healthy and get out of this game clean. Yeah. And next week's big noon, all eyes will be on Columbus.
Is it official big noon?
Oh yeah, it was announced like weeks ago. It was big noon.
Oh, I didn't see it. When you look at ESPN, it still just says TBD.
No, I'm pretty sure they announced a couple weeks ago that Penn State, Ohio State,
I just didn't know.
And Penn State, Michigan were both big noon games.
Gotcha. No, I mean,
I'll look it up, but
I wouldn't be surprised at all. No, I said the same thing. They can't lose sight of Ohio State. Obviously, you don't want to look forward and make like dumb mistakes. I kind of want Drew Allaire to throw a pick so he gets out of his system. I mean, I don't really care about having 0 right now. I'd rather just get 1 out of his system so that it's not as big of an impact in the Ohio State game. But it's also homecoming game for Penn State. Wearing the numbers on the helmets, stripes on the side of the pants. They had the Argyle design in the end zone. Looks crazy. They're actually doing something, which I think they should stick with the numbers on the helmets permanently. But that's just me.
I love that look too. I
don't need the stripes on the pants, but the numbers on the helmets look good.
Big noon kickoff at the shoe next week.
Okay, all right.
So
Gus
it'll be Gus. Yeah, the 1-in-6 Minutemen will collect $1.6 billion from Penn State for this game. It's a nice payday to get beat down by 42 points. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we're finishing up with the Alabama Crimson Tide hosting the Arkansas Razorbacks. I don't know, man. Is this the KJ Jefferson, the KJ Jefferson magnum opus here against Bama on the road? Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. Bama's still not they're not a Bama team that we've seen the past few years, but they're still probably just gonna go 10-2. And I don't even know where their second loss is now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe to LSU.
Yeah. Maybe
they're going to be like a 10-2 team and be in the Cotton Bowl or something, or the Sugar Bowl, whatever. I don't know what the playoff is this year. The Rose Bowl and what's the playoff this year? Do you know?
Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl.
Rose Bowl and Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're gonna be in the Cotton Bowl and beat up on some Group of 5 team probably, and then Saban's gonna regroup next year and they're gonna be national title contenders again. That's my prediction for Bama. For the year. That's
where I'm at with them too. We didn't talk about Texas and Oklahoma at all. They're on both byes. Oklahoma beat Texas last week in a crazy Red River game. Oklahoma's for real. That game, they're going to play again in Dallas in a couple weeks.
So that game took 4 hours.
When does it not? When does it not take? It's always a marathon. I was paying attention to that in the first quarter because we're watching that next to Ohio State, Maryland, and they were at like 8 minutes left, and Ohio State was at like 3 minutes left in the quarter, and I was like, man, like, what are we doing?
There was a sequence that went pick in the red zone, blocked punt for touchdown, and then like a 55-yard kick return. It was just like 3 straight plays. It's ridiculous.
Well, that'll do it for the Not Here to Play School podcast. We're not going to lament on the Texas loss here. Sorry, guys. Y'all can go read something else about Oklahoma winning. It was a sad day in both Micah households in Chicago and in Western New York. So, yeah, I think that the thing about Texas though is that they really they gave every opportunity for Oklahoma to be in that game too, and Oklahoma still only won on that last second drive. So I think I think if they meet again, Texas would win, and then who fucking knows what happens playoff wise when they both have a win against each other and they're both just sitting there staring each other down. You know what I mean?
It was interesting because even with Texas being the higher ranked team, everything had chances like to make the playoff, chances to win the Big 12, or everything was in Oklahoma's favor. But I mean, obviously it paid off for them. It comes down to, we'll say one thing. Sark needs to figure out a better game plan from the 1 yard line. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. He definitely
needs to be a little bit more inventive.
A 10-year-old Madden player wouldn't run up the middle 3 times.
No.
Or at least not try a tush push. Let's come back all the way around. Just push Quinn Ewers into the end zone, bro. You're at the 1-inch line. And the throw to Worthy, I would have done that on 1st down. Why are you doing that on 4th down?
Yeah.
You need to throw into the end zone.
No, they huge gain to Whittington. All three receivers, they show them coming off the field, dapping them up. Yeah, good job. They all show up. There's
nothing.
Not ideal.
There's nothing worse to me than a 4th and goal and they decide to run a play that isn't into the end zone, because what the fuck are you doing? Right. And yeah, so Sark, hopefully his last big lesson before they go on to a college football playoff run, because that team is they're still just as good. I think all we learned was that Oklahoma is back and they're for real again too, because Venables' defense, they were flying around. They looked awesome, but that game was very well played all the way through. And I'm excited to see those 2 teams in the SEC next year, because I think if they were in the SEC this year, it'd be Georgia and those 2 teams. I don't think Bama would be ahead of either of those guys.
We kind of know that already. We saw Texas play Bama and then beat them at home. So, yeah.
All right. Well, enjoy week 7 tomorrow. We'll be back next week to break it all down. Have a good one, folks.